This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. Welcome to our new format. We're going to give this a shot.
This looks really professional and slick.
Yes, it does. Lefty's going to have to slide. Try sliding that way. There you go.
I feel like if you only catch half of me in the split screen, I'll look thinner.
I tried that. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work?
It doesn't work at all. You know, because maybe if I did a quarter. How about this?
Well, you have to turn yourself to the...
There you go.
All right.
Now I'm looking really thin.
What I will say is, now my back is to the monitor, so I can't really see anything. Let me just for a quick test. Is it better if I'm looking here or looking at you? What is it?
Either way, you're looking good. This way, you're looking at our audience.
Yeah.
And the other way, you're looking at me.
Does it look like I'm looking at you?
Well, this way, you're looking more political. Maybe presidential would be the word.
I'm wearing my I had nothing to do today but talk to a judge for 3 seconds outfit.
Oh, is that it?
Why? Just enough that I didn't get thrown out of the courthouse.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, today we have an exciting show like we have every week. Last week, I heard it was a tremendous success. We got away from the politics, or at least Blake did, and got some music going.
I thought it went, I don't know how much of a success it would be necessarily, except it was really fun, and we were able to carry it off. The production of the show, I thought, was a success. Maybe if the listeners enjoyed the 3 acts that we had play and discuss sort of the craft of writing music, then I'm happy for that. If they didn't, well, you know, maybe they'll like, you know, us getting back to business today.
Well, let's hope. But it was a good break, and I know that you're very talented. Are you going to be out at the Flying Moose or any other animals this weekend?
Not anytime soon. No, I don't have any gigs booked at all for the month of December. I'm probably going to take another long break unless somebody calls me and wants me to do something. But I just it's getting to be closer and closer to the holidays. It's harder to cram that stuff in. I'm also planning a short vacation at the end of the month over New Year's. So
where are you going to go?
Kansas City.
All right, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
that'll be a lot of fun. Blake has a tendency to go to places named after animals. So if you have a place named after an animal, like I don't know, the Beaver Dam or something like that, then he'll be glad to show up. Please give him a call.
We don't like dams for beavers. We don't. We want those beavers. We want those beavers to have open access. You know? Anyway.
Yes. Well, we have today. We're going to discuss. This segment is going to take the longest. There was an awful tragedy down in Kansas City, and I'm sure everybody's talked to death about it, and everybody's offered their opinion and everything else. What we're going to talk about today is the cult of personality culture. And how it, really does foster this kind of behavior in these superstars. Because even though Jovan Belcher was not a superstar, he was a respected linebacker in the league. And very, people loved him down in Kansas City. He had the outward appearance of being a really great guy. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and the responsibility that the media plays in holding up this cult of personality. One of the things I always found interesting is I always liked Michael Jordan, didn't like Dennis Rodman that much. And so I'm over at a place. I remember I was down in Florida, and I was talking about how I didn't like Dennis Rodman too much. One of the interns said, well, Dennis Rodman gives about 50% of his income to charity every year. I went, really? Oh, yeah. And he started talking about all these things. And he says, now look up Michael Jordan and see what he does. This is before you had the internet where you had everything online. And so, I went down and did some research, and that was true. And I thought to myself, it's the public persona that these people develop and start to follow. And sometimes they get trapped in there.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing we're going to talk about is Fiscal Cliff, or Frank, as I like to call him. Fiscal Frank, you listening? Yeah, he's nodding. He promised he's going to pay attention today. I thought, oh, my God, you weren't paying attention the rest of the time. Think of how much
he's too busy making us look good, and that's a full-time job.
I still don't look good. Look at me.
Well, he can only do so much.
Yes, it's true. Maybe I need makeup. Maybe I'll come in here and look like the chick, the big chick from Drew Carey's show.
Oh,
remember her?
Mimi?
Mimi,
Holy
that's
smokes.
Right. Yeah, I could come in and look like that.
I suppose you could.
Yes, I could. So we're going to talk a little bit about the fiscal cliff coming up. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Bob Costas and the Second Amendment, and how come Rush Limbaugh and the country singer, oh my God, Hank Bocephus, Hank Williams Jr. both got booted from ESPN basically, and yet Bob Costas goes out there and says something that's, to me, equally irresponsible, and nothing. Nobody's going to fire him. It's going to be good.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Second Amendment rights. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what to do with the warning signs of suicide, depression, things like that. And what to do if a loved one of yours, starts to suffer from this. Because it's an awful tragedy. It really is down there. Are you a Chiefs fan at all?
No.
Nope. Well, neither am I. I'm an anti-Chiefs fan, but still, it's an awful thing to happen.
Yep, absolutely.
Who's your team? The Broncos, I suppose?
Well, it's interesting that you would say that. I don't really have an NFL team. When I was growing up, I really liked Thurman Thomas, and so I was a Bills fan,
yes.
And thought that Andre Rison was the best wide receiver, and at the time he was really, really good.
Bad moon. He was married to a crazy chick, left eye.
Oh no, Andre Reed then.
Oh, Andre Reed.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
He was the wide out. Yep, yeah, Andre Rison got his house burned down.
Yes, he did.
Anyway,
that was interesting.
So I was a big Bills fan, but then after they lost their 4th Super Bowl in a row in the early 90s to the Dallas Cowboys, they lost 2 in a row to the Dallas Cowboys. But after they lost that 4th Super Bowl, I sort of thought to myself, I'm already a Cubs fan. I'm already having and Hawkeye football was pretty terrible in the early 90s. Well, except for the Rose Bowl trip in 91, but was pretty terrible throughout the mid-90s. I already have enough suffering in my life. I'm going to give up on the NFL and became an NFL widow of sorts. And so I struggled over the last few years because it sucked me back in while I was bartending. As a bartender, you need to have a working knowledge of the NFL. But I started watching a little bit more, and I realized that I don't really have a team. I'm not a fan of the NFL. I like college football better personally.
Yeah.
But I couldn't pick a new team because I gave up my old one. I wasn't going to go back to the Bills, but I couldn't pick a good team because then I'd look like a bandwagon guy. I have a sitting rule that I cannot root for a team whose starting quarterback played against the Hawkeyes at any time during his career. So that cuts out a lot of the NFL.
Sure.
Even if the Hawks beat them or not while they were in college. I
get it.
I don't like them. And so I had to and that left some teams I didn't really, historically didn't like all that much.
Sure.
But my girlfriend's father is a diehard Broncos fan. He grew up in the Denver area, so he's a legit diehard. And I've been kind of following them a little bit more with the Peyton Manning thing. And they're probably going to make the playoffs this year, which is interesting given how they had to do it last year. And
yes.
So I suppose you could call me a Broncos supporter.
Yeah.
Because I'm sort of like an in-law. You're
an in-law supporter.
I'm a Broncos fan. I'm a Broncos fan-in-law is what I am.
Okay, fair enough. On that note, we're going to head on out. Is this a 3-minute commercial or 1 minute? We'll be back in 3 minutes. Thanks for tuning in. After the break, we'll start talking about Jovan Belcher and murder and suicide and all that. A fun-filled evening, I guess. We've had a couple of these shows here lately like this.
People stopped killing themselves.
I wish they would. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician.
From Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Kaepernick really screwed him. Hi, we're back. You're listening to Doc and Lefty. I am Doc. Of course, on the right side of your screen is Lefty. Maybe we ought to flip that.
Well, you know, the people watching it would or I'm actually stage left.
You are stage left.
Coming away from, we're being presented to people.
Yes.
On the correct sides.
There you go. No, we're looking right at it. Now you're on the left.
Fair enough.
You feel better?
I
feel better being on the right.
All right. It doesn't matter to me.
I don't. We were talking about football in the meantime and how great football really is to watch. We were talking about some of the old boys from way back. Mentioned Mike Singletary and Andre Rison, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas. All these great old players. And this is something people may not know, but I do have training as a sports physician, and I have worked with professional athletes fairly consistently throughout my career. And not only with professional athletes, but people that are famous in general, actors, singers, things like that. Part of the problem is, everybody wants to go and be famous, and everybody wants to be popular. The problem is back in the day, the media would actually shudder from view some of the things that went on. Everybody knew that Rock Hudson was gay. They didn't expose that. They like JFK and his affairs, they shielded him from that. Now, whether that was because he was a Democrat or the president, I happen to believe it was because he was president, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is today everything is exposed. Not only do these people live in a fishbowl, the sharks and bacteria are in the fishbowl with them.
Well, I'm going to step. I feel like it's just a difference in the media culture nowadays.
Yes.
And when there's a couple of differences just in particular. Talking about Rock Hudson being gay and how the media didn't really know about, didn't report on that wholesale. It's just kind of a different culture in the media across the board, because back in those, the media wasn't as interested. I don't know, I didn't live when Rock Hudson was famous, but wasn't as interested in the personal lives of stars. They were more interested in what they were doing in their movies and the performances, and kind of sort of left the personal, like, bedroom details alone. Of course, who Elizabeth Taylor was going to marry and whether Rock Hudson and his latest girlfriend would break, that sort of stuff. But those, what happened in the bedroom sort of stayed in the bedroom.
Yeah, the intimate details.
Right, and that's different now. You have a lot
Absolutely.
because it has become a story to out the next star, or and I think that's going to be something that kind of falls by the wayside as homosexuality, becomes more and more or becomes less and less of an issue.
Yeah, well, my point really wasn't about homosexuality.
No, I know that.
It was about much more about, how the media took their responsibility seriously. They weren't, muckrakers. They weren't.
Well, there were,
but I mean, they were so marginalized. I mean, it's like, reading them in a comic book.
not really. I mean,
Well, sure.
what's his like Rockefeller, or
Hearst.
or Randolph Hearst. I mean, those guys were really I mean, that's why Randolph Hearst is the reason why we don't have legal pot in this country. That's
Yeah.
that's the reason, is because of the smear campaign around the 20s. So I mean, muckrakers have been around forever.
Well, but as far as personal things, I mean, yeah, you get muckrakers, but you don't have people that are trying to set up these people to be more than really what they are. And it's like ever since they got Nixon, it seems that the media is really trying to go after a lot of the public people. No matter what you do, what misstep you make, and especially with Twitter and Facebook and the rest of it, you can't do anything. You can't even go to a bar and have a drink with your friends. It was, I wasn't even a successful candidate, and the media attention was really quite astounding. And every little thing, if I didn't cross an I or dot a period at the end, it was intense. You couple that with these boys, which is what these guys are, coming out of college, that are 21, 22 years old, and you're giving them $2-3 million a year. Or I think in Belcher's case, I think he was getting $1.2 million or something a year.
I don't know.
Something like that.
I don't follow the Chiefs, so I had never heard of him before this happened.
Well, and he was a good linebacker. He was a starting linebacker, if I recall correctly. So the entire media is blowing him up. 1 week he's doing great. If he doesn't do well, then the next week he's a pariah. And it's not just him. It's everybody that plays sports and is in the spotlight. One of the things that allows you to compete at that level is a really healthy brand of narcissism. You cannot ever believe you're going to fail. That is just not something that's in their mindset. They just keep playing. If you interview Metallica and you talk to them about what kept them going when they were eating hand sandwiches, right? They'll say, they'll never talk about, we were never afraid we weren't going to make it. They never talk about that. If you listen to Guns N' Roses when they were coming up, they never talked about how they were afraid they weren't going to make it. And it's the same with the football players.
Once again, do you think the Guns N' Roses, though, was a band destroyed by the narcissism of the lead singer?
Well, absolutely.
And maybe personal initiative and drive is a little different than narcissism. I mean, I would say that Lars Ulrich betrayed himself as somewhat of a narcissist back in the Napster days, because sort of saying that his music transcended, kind of like was greater than the fans that built him. And I think that's the danger with a lot of these media figures, that the fame is derived. And it's a classic story, like even a political power. It's sort of like whether it's going to be organic or hegemonic, where the power, the fame is derived from the people, and yet then you think that you're entitled to people's love. It's sort of like it's a weird kind of thing.
Absolutely. But the narcissism starts somewhere. Usually it starts at home, and most of the time, and not always, but most of the time it starts with mom. A lot of these guys that you look at that are enormously successful, particularly presidents, are mama's boys. There's an exception to that mama's boy rule, and that exception is President Obama, who's a grandma's boy. All right, that's clear. When you read his writings, he talks a lot about his dad, but you can tell there's a tremendous amount of love for his grandma. So you have this healthy narcissism that gets twisted when they finally make it big. Like you said, the girl band Walk Like an Egyptian, the Bangles, they all had healthy narcissism. Suddenly they collapse. You read this over and over, behind the music, all the time. That's what the story is. You combine that narcissism now with fame and money. So now you have narcissism plus power. Now you get a dangerous situation. Here's Jovan Belcher, has a young baby, and he's living the rock star lifestyle. That's something difficult for everybody to comprehend. You can't comprehend being able to take a private jet to Miami for a weekend just to party. That's what's going on with him. As he's doing this partying, he runs into this girl, decides he's going to obviously maybe fall in love, and then he procreates. Now, after the break, we're going to continue the story of Jovan Belcher. We're going to get to the heart of narcissism and why this turned into such a tragedy so quickly. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. Thank you for tuning in.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I was just checking out my Facebook. You're welcome to Facebook me during the show or give us a call at the number right there if you have anything you want to talk about or say. One of the interesting things is I often forget that since I'm a psychiatrist, my definition of narcissism is much different than other people's definition of narcissism. Narcissism, when you talk about it in public, you know, among the rank and file, so to speak, really turns out to be just some selfish a-hole running around. That isn't what I'm talking about. Narcissism is that the rules don't apply to you. That you are basically entitled to run with people that are tremendous and great because you're just that tremendous and great. You are, because of some special dispensation from God or whoever, that when you fail, it's somebody else's fault, so you blame somebody else. And those are just basically the basic keys to it. Without getting into a whole lot of detail, because I could lecture for an hour about this, without getting into a lot of detail, healthy narcissism is they have enough awareness of how people perceive them to be able to change so that they can garner more of that respect and admiration. That's really the truth of it. People with an unhealthy narcissism really can't gauge that. Their need is so great that they can't see how other people perceive them. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think it makes sense. I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding, just in the sense of, if everybody famous, if I'm understanding sort of how you set this up, if everybody famous and successful is narcissistic to some degree, I don't want to step on your toes here.
No,
but
have at it.
If everybody famous and successful is narcissistic to some degree, then how do you explain? And narcissism is sort of it can be used as a clinical diagnosis of a behavior disorder.
Yes.
And because we all know where narcissism came from.
Yes, narcissism.
Yeah.
Well, it has to interfere to be a problem, a disorder. It has to interfere with social or occupational function.
Okay. So here's my question. If you take if you take Axl Rose as an example, and you take Paul McCartney as an example, both guys in their respective genres of music, enormous stars. Paul McCartney more so, obviously, for longer. People love Paul McCartney.
You bet.
And people loved Axl Rose back in the day. He is now universally panned across the board. Everybody hates Axl Rose now. He's a joke. Paul McCartney has, had some bumps and bruises along the way, certainly with his divorce, but is still universally, he's a knight at this point. So what is the difference in their narcissistic behavior?
This is one of these things where I think we're getting a little bit off topic.
Okay.
I'm going to answer it real quick because this is really for me, this is a fascinating subject, just personality disorders in general. One has an unhealthy one doesn't. It really depends on the degree of antisocialism you get in there.
Is that a different thing?
Yeah, it's a different personality disorder. People that are antisocial are very charming. People that are less antisocial are not so charming. Think about Axl Rose and how he's always late and that won't show up for concerts. And think about Paul McCartney, who will spend extra time out there entertaining the troops. Mm-hmm. He understands he has to do this because that antisocial thing kind of makes him, one, more charming, and number two, he really does understand how he affects people and the feedback he gets. Now, let's get back to the Belcher situation. You take this kid who's narcissistic, because they all are to some degree. They all have this drive. This drive comes from somewhere, and it comes from generally people's drives come from childhood. If you listen to these people that are enormously successful, they will have stories of tragedy in their childhood somewhere. I don't know what Jovan Belcher's is, but somewhere he developed this drive where he needed to be the center of attention. He needed to be great. And he was going to dedicate himself 6, 8, 10 hours a day, whatever it took, just like Olympians. This narcissism drove him to be great, but it also drove him to make a lot of narcissistic decisions. Well, I'm going to spend this money because I'm now the big man. I'm going to order all the Cristal I can. Well, the problem is even if you're worth $1 billion, at some point, if you don't watch what you spend, you're in trouble. Athletes go through this all the time. Singers go through it. Mm-hmm. Actors, how many times we've seen, MC Hammer's a great example, right?
Oh, the examples are countless.
Yeah. So that's what happens. These people get up there, everybody plies them with all this admiration, with all this financial benefit. And they want to take care of the people back home, the people that they love. And they learn to trust the wrong people. That's one of the things, the hallmark of a personality disorder is they really don't make that great of a decision regarding the people that they hang around. So these people fluff up their egos, feeds their narcissism, and then the problem is now they're spending money that they don't want, that they shouldn't have to spend. They want to go out, they want to be the big time. Jovan Belcher is having difficulty with his relationship. There's several reasons why he's having trouble with his relationship. One, he's a star athlete and his spouse is not, or his girlfriend is not. So she has no clue is what's in store. Two, he's gone a lot. He's traveling on the road. He's gone all day at practice. At night, he's watching film. On the weekends, he wants to go and let off some steam. She's pregnant or has the baby sitting at home. He can't go out and do what he wants to do. So he goes on and does it anyway. That's going to cause problems. Three, apparently there is some infidelity in the relationship that's been reported today. And one of the things that happens is here he is with a history of violence towards women from 2006 forward. And there's at least 2 incidents in there before that. And each time a woman has made him angry, has not done what he wants to do, which points to me that his trauma from childhood is from his mother. So whatever fight that they have escalates. And as he stops and he thinks about it, it tears at his ego defense mechanism. How can somebody do this? How can another female reject me? How can another female dare go against what I said? I'm Jovan Belcher. I'm this God. I can do whatever I want. The rules don't apply to me. At some point, people start thinking psychotically in these situations. It happens all the time. And what I mean by psychotic is a little bit different than what everybody else thinks. You start having a derangement in your thinking. That's what I mean. And it's a very straightforward chemical thing. You get too much dopamine, you're in too much stress, you start thinking incorrectly. Here's this pain that I need to stop. Here's this woman that's trying to break against me. I can't have that. I can't have it. My ego will not tolerate it. My defenses that keep me going can't tolerate that, and I need to eliminate it. And he goes back to the most primitive way you can fix something, and that's to kill it. If you have a neighbor that's irritating you, this is an example down in Indianola. You have your neighbor, you're having problems. At some point you go, I'm done with it, and I'm just going to go kill him. And that's what people do. That's the most primitive way you can respond. And when you're under an extreme amount of duress, if you don't have those defense mechanisms in place, you will wind up killing yourself or killing somebody else. What often happens is after the suicide, after the suicide, the person's dead, not much else happens. After the murder is what I meant, the dopamine levels fall. They become remorseful because as dopamine levels go up, in general, serotonin levels get driven down. As that happens, they become very remorseful and they become even more psychotic. Now they're really, not only do they have the anger to deal with, but suddenly that anger is gone, and what are you going to replace it with? What you replace it with is despair. And they go, I can't deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. So they go and they commit suicide. Now, Javon Belcher most of these athletes have a very strong sense of team and community, very strong. And he went to the people that helped him because he needed to explain. So that's why he went to the Chiefs facility and said, listen, this is what I did, and I can't live with it, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to live with it. And he went and kills himself. That's very narcissistic and very self-centered.
I think it's a pretty hard rap to hang on somebody to do that in front of people, personally.
Absolutely. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about the media's reaction to this, which I find entirely asinine. It's just absolutely horrific how they responded, in my opinion. We'll be back after a short break. This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. Thanks for tuning in on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
It's like they want to get hit.
Need a body shop?
Minor Wreck Express saves you time and money.
Hi, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. We're going to finish up our segment with Javon Belcher. So the media comes on Saturday. They don't even mention, or on Sunday, they don't even mention the girlfriend's name until the second set of games, and only just after everybody got done saying what a tragedy, it's too bad that he did this. And then the next night on Monday Night Football, they're all talking about the tragedy and everything else. And then Bob Costa spouts off, well, if he'd had a gun, this wouldn't have happened. If he didn't have a gun, and the gun culture. Well, the truth of the matter is there are so many factors that were associated with this. You can kill, just in the last 2 weeks, you can point to any number of ways people have been killed. They've been killed by poison, been killed by getting shoved in front of a train, knifing, all this stuff. And the size differential is so big. So from my perspective, the media was completely irresponsible in their handling of this. They needed to come right out and say, we appreciate Javon Belcher. The person that we knew and loved is not who he turned out to be. And in addition, here are his victims, and we need to pray for them. And you don't get any of that with the media, the coverage, anything like that. It's like people don't understand the horrible thing he did.
Okay.
All right, we'll talk about the Second Amendment.
Well, I mean, I just first of all, I went back. You put the Costas thing on Facebook, and I went back and kind of read a little bit about what he actually said, and he was more quoting and paraphrasing from a Fox sports article written by Jason Whitlock, who he's a sports commentator, happens to be African American, and he writes a lot about race and sports. And Whitlock's column was heavy in the black athlete gun culture that exists in professional sports.
Absolutely.
And not to make it a racial thing at all, but it's fairly clear that a lot of these guys, a lot of these African American male athletes have a lot of experience or have a lot of exposure to guns, whether it's Burris shoots himself in the leg outside of a strip club, or any of the numerous violent athletes that have used guns to commit crimes in the past. It's just
Ray Caruth,
right? It's just it's replete in the record, and a lot. And it's understandable to a certain degree if you think these are guys who are public figures, who have a lot of wealth and who have a lot of exposure, and who don't feel safe. And for a lot of these guys, especially the ones who grew up in rougher backgrounds, that sort of vigilance, you're not going to get rid of that throughout your lifetime. That vigilance and growing up and sort of that I have to protect myself and my own, I'm going to go get a gun. That's where that came from. And what Whitlock and by extension Costas' point was that if that culture was, restricted, that these sorts of violent acts wouldn't occur to the degree they did. That was the point he was trying to make. Now, I would accept the idea of criticizing somebody who makes a political statement during a professional football broadcast. I mean, but one could think to him, and especially someone who's not a political actor at all, and what authority does Bob Costas have to speak on any of this stuff? One, he's not black. Two, he's probably not a gun owner. Three, he's never run for office. He has no platform on which to talk about this, but he does have a public profile and is able to bring up something that our politicians, both on the left and the right, have been scared to bring up for the last 40 years.
Yes.
Gun control in this country is a non-starter.
But he never even mentioned race. He never mentioned race at all. Bob Costas didn't.
Well, Corey,
the way Costas made it out is like, we just need to get rid of guns. I mean, that's
a separate question, though. And I don't think
I agree with what you said, but my point is he's sitting there talking about race, and he's talking about doing away with guns, and that this wouldn't happen under a gun culture. And at no point does he say, listen, blacks have to get it together. And he doesn't say any of that. And I understand what Jason Whitlock said, but my point about Bob Costas is, you have Rush Limbaugh, who lost his job for simply stating, I think there are social issues why McNabb is still in.
That's not what Rush said. That's not what Rush said at all.
That's how it started.
That's not what he said.
That is what he said.
That's not what he said. Rush Limbaugh said that black quarterbacks aren't as good because they're black. That's essentially what he said.
He didn't say the black quarterbacks weren't good because they're black. He said they're not good at throwing the ball simply because they're trained to run the ball and not throw the ball.
And that's not what he said. And that's not what he said. Don't even try. Do not try and revise the history on what Rush Limbaugh said and why he got fired.
We'll talk about Rush Limbaugh after the show. The point is, Rush Limbaugh lost his job for that. So did Bo Cephas. I think Costas should be losing his job.
They said racist things. What racist thing did Bob Costas say?
Well, it's still offensive. It's offensive to me.
How's it offensive? How's what he said offensive?
Because he's threatening my Second Amendment rights. The left
why
is the only people that are allowed to be offended by stuff?
Why would your Second Amendment rights be under threat by Bob Costas? He's not the government.
I know, but he's calling for it. He has power among people.
If Bob Costas started a political movement that got rid of guns and convinced political leaders to get rid of guns, that's one thing. Having a guy say something about gun control does not threaten anything, Pat. I think that you're a little bit hysterical here.
Well, I might be a little bit hysterical, but I'm not even going to admit to that. What I am going to admit to is Bob Costas said something that I think was completely out of line. And if Bo Cephas loses his job, because
for saying something racist,
I don't think he said anything racist. You know, don't look it up. You know,
we can discuss it. I'm saying that he did, and that's why he lost his job.
And I disagree, but I think Bob Costas needs to lose his job or at least be reprimanded for that stuff.
He can be reprimanded to the extent that he commented on a political thing that was sort of completely non-apropos to his job description. That's different. And whether or not the NFL Network, whoever he works for, thinks that that's a firing offense, is up to them. But he certainly didn't threaten anybody's Second Amendment rights, and he certainly didn't say anything that a lot of people don't think in this country.
Well, I don't think a lot of people think that. I don't think a lot of people think that the gun culture was responsible for this tragedy down in Kansas City.
No, well, but see, you're making a larger point.
Yeah, the part of the thing is you know, there was a Cleveland Browns player, I think, that hung himself. It might not be a player, but an employee of some kind this weekend. Don't hear anything about that.
Well, okay.
Don't hear anything about that.
But he didn't kill somebody.
No, he didn't. But still, the thing is you know, it's the same kind of thing, logic and apply.
Well, no, and if Jovan Belcher had shot himself and not killed anybody, you wouldn't really have heard anything about him either, because most of the gun violence in this country is from suicide. Self-inflicted gun is self-inflicted.
Yes,
it's suicide.
Yes.
Now, but the majority of violent crimes against other people are committed with firearms. That's not even arguable. That if you commit a violent crime against somebody, the chances are it's likely that you're a victim of a gun crime, and the vast majority of that crime are handgun crimes. So if you're talking about violent gun crime in this country, you're talking about handguns, and there should be not assault rifle. I mean, the assault weapons ban that got overturned by Congress and then reinforced by the Supreme Court. I mean, it's such a silly thing. If you want to talk about the Second Amendment in the next segment, I'd love to talk to you about it.
All right. Well, we're going to be back in just a minute. Me and Lefty are going to put on the gloves and duke it out during that commercial. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You're listening to us on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. We didn't have enough time to finish our fisticuffs on the during the commercial break. Our next subject is going to be the fiscal cliff. We'll save the Second Amendment murder and all that stuff for next week, because I think that'd make a good show.
It would make a good show, and I'd get my facts straight.
Who got the pow on that one, Frank? I didn't even have a chance to see it.
Oh, that was the Doc. I was fiddling with something.
Oh yeah, so he gave you a free pow on my expense.
Oh,
Great.
It wasn't free. I earned it.
Anyway, the fiscal cliff coming up. What a bunch of idiots. That's all I have to say. There's no way good to say this. You have to work with Congress. You have to work with the president. The president wants tax hikes. A lot of the House is not going to give them tax hikes because they have to go home and explain why they did that.
To the people that voted for the tax hike?
To go back home and vote for the people that voted them in.
Then they should have gerrymandered their district.
What?
Then they should have gerrymandered their district.
Well, why do you... None of that has anything to do with this
subject
here.
It has a little bit to do with it.
All right. Well, I understand. You gerrymander your district so that, you slide it one way or another.
Right. This is my problem with the little bit of the whining that the right has been doing about the fiscal cliff negotiations.
Sure.
You haven't been doing very much of it. I'm just going to let that hang out there for a second.
That myself?
That I'm not personally attacking the good doctor over here. Because first of all, I'd never do that. He's bigger than me. Second of all, he's a friend of mine, and I don't beat up my friends. But I'm getting a little tired of it because the president ran on raising taxes on people making over $250,000 a year. He ran on that, and he won. And so for the Republicans to come back and say, yeah, we're going to ignore that election, we're going to ignore the people that agreed with you that said, yeah, you know what, I think that people making over $250,000 a year should pay a little bit more in taxes. We're going to ignore that because we don't want to, we're crybabies who want our way. That's basically what's going on here.
I'm going to disagree with the crybaby. I do agree that Obama won the election.
I hope so.
But there's still nearly half the population that did not vote for him. All right.
Right, on different things. 60% of the population wants tax to go up on the wealthy. That was a wide mandate.
Well, I understand. I think if you have 40% of the people that don't want something, it's not necessarily mandate.
By 20 points, are you kidding me? That's a supermajority in the Senate. I mean, what more? In a democracy, it's 50 plus 1. And that means that you win.
But
and
we're
that
a
means
federated republic. Isn't that what we are?
We're a Republican democracy that on most political things that aren't constitutionalized, 50 plus 1 is the standard. That means taxes, that means budgets, that means spending.
So you don't think, see, my problem with this is, we're going to have to raise taxes. I mean, that's straightforward, right? The problem is, there's 3 different problems with the way President Obama wants to raise taxes. One, he's punishing the very people that create jobs. Because if you start talking about a married couple making more than $250,000 a year, most of the time they're going to be self-employed business people. They're the ones that hire. So what you're really talking about is an income tax on those that create a lot of jobs. Number 2, Boehner proposed doing a lot of cuts or a lot of raising taxes through closing of loopholes. Similar to
raising of revenues. He doesn't want to raise the tax rates.
Yeah, well, raising of revenues. That's a good way to put it because you're absolutely correct. You're correct about that. But he's trying to change the loopholes so that they can raise revenues that way.
What loopholes? He won't tell you, and that's the whole problem.
Well, then the third problem is what spending cuts are they going to do? We haven't heard anything from the Democrats about spending cuts. And we know from Reagan's experience, he raised taxes on the promise that they would engage in spending cuts. We never got spending cuts, but we got the tax hikes. That's the problem that I see with this, is history. If President Obama came up and said, here's the things we're willing to cut, and we're willing to put some things on the table, I think the Republicans would be much more than happy to go, all right, here's some tax hikes that we can go through.
They've talked about means testing in Medicare, which would cut a lot of.
They've talked about it, but they haven't formally said here it is.
They have also, but you have lawmakers saying that's a good idea. They've talked about cutting defense, and I know that's a golden cow because it's a jobs program. The military-industrial complex is a jobs program to the right. Just to get that out there, talk about cuts to the military. Entitlement spending has been said by numerous people that it's on the table. But here's the thing about what John Boehner has actually done. John Boehner was talking about that he was willing to accept, $900 billion of revenue, that he'd be okay with back in 2011. Couldn't sell that to the base. He comes back after losing his first party, got smacked in the election. They lost seats in the House, for crying out loud.
It's a presidential election year.
They got walloped, and they lost ground in the Senate. They lost everywhere, and they had a really bad election. Let's just make sure that everybody realizes that.
I don't think it's nearly as bad as what it could have been running Romney.
Well, but they ran Romney, and that's what happened. So, and it's convenient to place all the blame on him. But he comes back after the Republicans did not do well, that their plan for the country did not have wide support by the people, and comes back with less in spending. He comes back that he wants $850 billion of revenue. So what? That's not how to negotiate. Hey, guess what? I'm going to sell you my car for $10,000. Sound good? No. Well, yeah. I don't know. Okay. Well, I tell you what. I'll sell it to you for $11,000. That's not how it works.
And I understand that. This is my issue with the Republican Party. There's 2 issues here that you brought up. One, we had a discussion on the old show about how the military recruits mainly brown people, and more than brown, right? Remember that?
I do.
All right. So if
And
you
poor
cut
people. I also said poor people.
if you cut the defense spending, who do you think they're going to get rid of? They're not going to get rid of their pet projects. They're going to get rid of the people that are poor and the people that are disenfranchised. So to me, that's an attack.
That's not how it works, because the programs are allocated. The programs are allocated in the defense budget. If they cut down on the Soviet era F-15s and F-14s that are being built in plants in Alabama and Tennessee that the military doesn't want, that would cut out. Yeah, they lose a lot of manufacturing jobs is the thing that you hear all the time. But we don't need them, and they cost more money than we actually make.
But I'm actually talking about the people who are serving in our military. They will reduce the size of the people that are doing it, but they don't reduce the size of the things they like to buy. I don't know how to explain it besides that. And you know it's true, and I know it's true. So this, for me, this is a broadside against people that are poor, disenfranchised, less than white, however you want to talk about it. The second point that you bring up is, coming back the way Boehner did, President Obama is equally responsible for this. You're right. Neither one of them are negotiating. Neither one of them are. Obama's throwing stuff out there about, we want tax hikes. We want tax hikes. Well, how about some spending cuts? Well, we might do this, we might do that, but we're not going to, put that on the table now, but we are going to put tax hikes out there. That's not the way to do business. What you do is you sit down and you go, honest to God, Simpson Bowles is a bad idea, but it's better than what they got now. The other point that you brought up, the Republicans come back, they have no plan. You know why we have Obamacare? Because the Republicans blew their chance to reform health care. That's what happened.
Well, Obamacare is a Republican plan, number one. But number two,
that's true, and it was terrible then too.
What Barack Obama is doing, and I think Boehner understands this, because Boehner might not have control of his party, but I don't think he's stupid. I think the president is giving Boehner political cover to be able to sell the fiscal cliff deal. Because what the president is doing, he's going out there and he's saying, all right, John, we went golfing that one time. I don't talk to you very much, but I've always kind of liked you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw out something that is so completely off base that your party will not like at all, that they'll scream and they'll gnash their teeth, and I'm going to do it because I can get away with it. I just won the election. The Beltway is going to give me this one. They're going to give me a pass. However, I don't want to get dragged into a gigantic political fight before Christmas and before we go over the fiscal cliff, because neither party can afford the political risks of looking like they dumped the country. Because if we go over the fiscal cliff, we will go into recession. Every economist says so. Tax hikes, spending cuts in the government will dump us into a recession just as fast as it did with Britain. That's how it's going. That's what's going to happen. So Boehner says, well, I got to sell him something, President. I can't hang that out there. I'll get beat up. My party won't vote for it. You'll have a uniparty bill, and at this point, and the public didn't vote for that. The public voted for bipartisanship. So the president said, all right, well then we'll make a show about these hard-fought negotiations. I'll give a little bit on the stuff that, on the revenue raises that I know I couldn't get in the first place, and you'll be able to go back to your party and say, look, I talked them down $100 billion over 10 years. And they'll be more likely to vote for it. I think that it's political calculus and theater at the highest level that doesn't serve the country as well as it should, because if you're taking a balanced approach the way that Simpson Bowles kind of talks about, even though both sides agree Simpson Bowles is just sort of like a mediocre, bland vanilla pudding of a budget deal, you would have revenue increases. You'd get rid of the farm bill, or you get rid of farm subsidies. That's actually been proposed. Farm subsidies, you'd get rid of, you'd make modest cuts in different areas of entitlement spending, and you would raise marginal tax rates on things that don't really hurt middle-class families and don't really, and also business. If you raise capital gains tax, 3.5%, that's not going to break somebody. It could dissuade public investment, but not very much. And so there are modest things that these folks can do, but they're not willing to do it because the political stakes are so high.
Well, absolutely. I agree with everything you said, except President Obama really does have to come up with some tax cuts. He's got to come up, not tax cuts, spending reductions. That's one of the key things. Whenever you get yourself into an economic bind, you work more and spend less. That's what they need to do. This isn't rocket science. I don't need to be an economist. I don't even need to be Milt Freeman or Ayn Rand or who's that big, or Paul Krugman.
Ayn Rand is not an economist, nor was she ever.
Well, but she got some good ideas.
No, well, we could talk about that in a different show too.
But the bottom line is you don't have to be an economist to know this stuff. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to run this country. Get out of the way of small business, let them run. Get in the way of giant corporations screwing everybody in right and left. Now, honest to God, I know I sound like Ed Fallon. I'm not espousing what Ed Fallon espouses, but I am saying that you have to start rewarding competence and entrepreneurship instead of punishing it. Anything you want to say to that? Because we're gonna go out on a medical minute. Anything you want to say after that?
I guess I don't have a lot to say about that, other than the fact that just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you're a job creator, and also, you know, investing in multinational corporations, like buying shares of stock. Sure, you can tell yourself and help yourself sleep better at night that you're contributing to some sort of public good, but you have your money better spent and your dollars better utilized in the economy by investing in local businesses, folks you know. And if you do that, you're gonna see you might not see as great of a return if you've invested in a hedge fund, but you're definitely going to help your local economy grow faster in a more sustainable way.
Well, he has the last word on this. We'll duke it out after. Oh, see, two. I can't take it. So listen, we're going to go out on a medical minute. People are scared silly when they have a loved one or somebody they care about start talking about suicide. All right. I'm going to tell everybody out there, it's very serious. Even if you think it's BS, even if you think they're just playing the game, you have to get them help. You have to take them somewhere. The problem, and particularly among kids and teenagers, kids not so much, but teenagers are so impulsive that they will do something stupid just because they don't have any other way of coping with it. So whenever you have anybody that is starting to cycle downward, you have to talk to them. You have to hang out with them. Invite them to do things. You know, there's no secret, I like online gaming. I have some online friends. Every once in a while, you call them up and you say, how you doing? Let's play some, my latest thing is Black Ops. I said, let's play some Black Ops. How you doing? Talk to them that way. If they start talking about, they start giving you things, that they start saying, well, I want you to have this. I want you to have that. You have to get them help. You have to do this. The best story I have about that affected me personally. I have a gold tooth, believe it or not, way in the back, and I had a root canal, and my doctor was halfway through it, and he handed me my X-rays, and he says, "Here." He goes, "I want you to have your X-rays." I said, "You're not done with all this," and he says, "Well, yeah, but I really think you should have them." Doc, are you going to kill yourself? No, I would never do that. I understand that, but why are you giving me these? Well, I just think it's better, and we have a copy here and everything else. So I went out to his receptionist and I said, your dentist, your doc here, your boss is going to kill himself. And he's close to it because he's giving away his records. Yeah, I don't know why he's doing that. He's going to commit suicide. Get him some help. Get him some help. Oh, well, I don't think he'll do that. He'll do that. I walk out the door. 2 days later, he's dead. That's how these things happen. You have to talk about it to people. You have to get them help. Because trust me, life is a lot better when you're alive than when you're dead. So on that sad note, God, we've had 2 shows already like that. We got to quit doing this.
Well, but I'll bring it back up. Don't
All right,
worry. I got some friends that are playing around town.
Great.
Open jam every Wednesday night, tomorrow night at the Standard Bar right around the corner from the studio. Our good friend Brad Seidenfeld, who played for us last week, his band BS and the Liars is going to be playing at Bombay Bicycle Club, and that's on Friday at 9 o'clock. My buddies It's Complicated are playing a gig Saturday, 9 o'clock at, I'll get the location of that here shortly. We've got, and I think that's probably over at the BBC as well. Anyway, we've got a good friend of mine down in Florida, Tim Bowie, is a part owner of a dueling piano bar in Gainesville, running the second annual toy drive down there. It's a great time if you are traveling in the next couple of weeks over the Christmas holiday. Stop at Gainesville, go to Rockies. Tell the one of the piano guys, Brad Heron, he's one of the owners, or Tim Bowie, that Blake, the harmonic guy from Iowa, sent you. They'll know who you're talking about. And my buddy Tony Bonenkamp playing a big New Year's Eve bash, Piano Palooza, on the 31st, starting at 9 o'clock. And he's playing at a Woolies over in the East Village. So check that stuff out. A lot of good things happening in December.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We'll have a much more upbeat show next week. We'll be talking about the Second Amendment and, why Lefty's a loon on this particular issue. Don't I get a POW? I don't even get a POW. We'll be back next week. Webcast1live.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.